That is why all the girls in town.
Karen Carpenter, an angel with a crystal-clear voice. But few people know it was the illness she kept hidden throughout her career that slowly eroded her voice, then took her life. She was praised as one of the most beautiful female singers of the 20th century. With a warm, emotional contralto voice and perfect technique, Karen Carpenter and her brother Richard Carpenter created the band The Carpenters, one of the pop ballad monuments of the 70s. But when Karen stood on stage, the audience only saw gentleness, sweet smiles, and pure love songs. No one knows she often vomited backstage, forcing herself to starve to the point of not being able to keep her balance on stage. Anorexia nervosa, a then largely unrecognized eating disorder, was slowly eating away at her body and her voice, bit by bit, note by note. And then, on February 4th, 1983, at just 32 years old, Karen Carpenter collapsed in the bedroom of her parents' house. She died of heart failure, but the root cause wasn't her heart. It was the very thing she had always wanted to control, her body. Karen left a haunting question for posterity. Why did a woman who had it all, talent, beauty, fame, never feel like it was enough? And what disease could silence an angel's voice forever? The truth behind it is much darker. A girl who loved drums, hated attention, and her journey to being remade into a musical goddess. Karen Carpenter was born in 1950 in New Haven, Connecticut, USA. From a young age, she was different from other girls. Karen did not like dresses, did not like dancing and singing, but loved drums. She often sat for hours listening to the rhythmic tapping, then taught herself how to play drums on everything in the house. When the family moved to California in 1963, Karen entered Downey High School, where she found her true love for music. At first, she just wanted to be a professional drummer. But when her brother, Richard Carpenter, started playing keyboards and forming a band, they discovered Karen's voice was a secret weapon. Her contralto voice was completely different from the era. While the 60s and 70s favored high-pitched voices like Barbra Streisand, Karen sang low, soft, resonant, and full of emotion. However, it was during this time that the first seeds of body image insecurity began. In an entertainment world where all the female singers were thin, had curly hair, and wore tight clothes, Karen began to be ridiculed as fat, unsexy, bland. Even her mother, who always tightly controlled Karen's life, once said, "You should stand behind Richard. Drums are more suitable for you. Don't dominate." Gradually, Karen stepped back from the drums, stood in front of the microphone, and gave up her own personality to become what the public expected, a sweet princess of love songs. No one expected that that retreat would be the beginning of a lifelong rift. While the world was celebrating her angelic voice, Karen Carpenter was slowly withering away from self-loathing. In the early 1970s, the Carpenters became a global phenomenon. Songs like Close to You, We've Only Just Begun, and Superstar brought Karen to the pinnacle of musical glory, not only in the United States, but also in England, Japan, and Australia. She became a symbol of gentleness, femininity, and pure American beauty. But that was also an invisible trap. The pressure to maintain a perfect image made Karen increasingly obsessed with her body. She began to diet severely, drinking water instead of meals, exercising to the point of exhaustion, and then vomiting after every meal. At that time, the world barely understood what eating disorders were. No one, not even Richard or her mother, realized what was happening. People only applauded her when she lost weight and looked better. To make matters worse, the press began to openly comment on her weight. A 1975 article described, "Karen Carpenter is looking more like a slender guitar than a musician." So weak, Karen fainted several times right before performances. Her voice, once crystal clear and strong, began to lose strength, become short and unstable. Doctors warned her, "If you keep this up, you will permanently damage your vocal cords." But Karen did not stop. In the mirror, she still saw herself as not beautiful enough. And the angelic voice that had brought her to the top was now the victim of the obsession that fame brought. When Karen Carpenter decided to take back her life, but her body was beyond its limits. After years of struggling with an eating disorder in silence, by the late 1970s, Karen began to realize that she was disappearing. No longer the golden voice, no longer the heart of the Carpenters. She was just a tired shadow, thin, exhausted both physically and mentally. In 1980, Karen decided to take a break from music to get treatment. She began to see doctors, nutritionists, and even voice rehabilitation methods. Here, she was diagnosed with severe anorexia nervosa, a term that was still very unfamiliar to the public and the medical community at that time. She tried to eat again, tried to regain her strength to record her first solo album, something she had always dreamed of. But ironically, her efforts to recover made her body worse. The sudden weight gain, after a long period of starvation, put a strain on her already weakened heart and internal organs. A doctor once told the press, "She tried very hard, but by the time she started to recover, her body was too exhausted to come back." In February 1983, Karen returned to her parents' home in Downey, California, just turned 32. She told her mother, "I feel better. Maybe we can start over, Mom." But that was the last night. The fateful morning and the death that shocked the world. Too late to realize that silence can kill. On the morning of February 4, 1983, Karen Carpenter woke up at her parents' house in Downey, California. She put on some light makeup, planning to meet Richard, to discuss plans for a reunion. She had gained a little weight. She was eating again. She believed she was getting better. But when Karen walked into the dressing room, she collapsed to the floor. Her heart suddenly stopped. By the time the ambulance arrived, Karen had been unconscious for too long. Despite doctors' efforts to revive her, she died at Downey Community Hospital at 9:51 a.m. The official cause: heart failure due to complications from a long-standing eating disorder. Karen Carpenter, the woman whose voice was known as the voice that soothes broken hearts, died of her own heart. After her death, Karen's personal physician sent her family a final psychological evaluation. It read, "Karen was always trying to please everyone, except herself. She was a brilliant artist, a gentle friend, but inside, she was a lonely girl who couldn't forgive herself for not being perfect." Karen Carpenter's funeral drew thousands of fans from all over. "We've Only Just Begun" played softly in the chapel, as a farewell to a soul who never lived. Karen Carpenter, the angelic voice, has passed away, but the echoes of her silent pain forever change the way the world listens to fragile souls. Karen Carpenter's death in 1983 was shocking not only because she was so young, so talented, but also because the cause was so obscure at that time, an eating disorder. Before Karen, no one talked about anorexia nervosa in the mass media. After Karen, the whole world began to look back at how they treated women in the arts, with the toxic appearance standards imposed by showbiz. Karen Carpenter became an unwanted icon, the first person to bravely leave a warning through her own death. Since then, a series of studies, health organizations, and early intervention programs for young people have begun to take shape. Richard Carpenter, her brother, lifelong partner, once said in an interview, "If Karen had lived until the 90s, I believe she could have made it, but she was ahead of her time." And her passing awakened a whole music industry. Today, Karen's songs still ring on the radio every day. Close to You, Rainy Days and Mondays, Only Yesterday. Each melody is not just music, but a whisper from a soul that always wants to love, but doesn't know how to love itself. Karen Carpenter did not overcome the disease called not being good enough, but she did overcome something else. She made the whole world stop and listen to those who were once forgotten.